Good morning, everyone. How are we? This is pretty exciting. Actually, this is a home game for me, and I think the first time we did one of these, it was about 15 people in the back room somewhere. So it's pretty amazing to see how, integration and connectivity is now at the forefront of many more organizations. I think what Greg did there was paint an excellent picture of what a connected future looks like. And it's my role to bring that into this room and help everyone here understand how we get to that stage, how we get to becoming connected companies. And this is what the next 2 days is all about. It's all around how connectivity is driving not just innovation, but also agility. It's unlocking our information. It's connecting the assets that all our organizations have to the audiences that care about it. Because essentially, that's what connectivity is all about. It's not just about connecting back-end systems. And the situation today in the enterprise is simple. Most people's data is on-premise. It's behind the four walls of the enterprise. But the business is pushing us, almost dragging people in this room to the cloud. And the complication there is, it's not just the SaaS applications being introduced into the enterprise, but also our consumer has changed. So whether our consumer is internal or external, the expectation that everything should connect is already there and present. And the challenge is, I think for many people in IT and surrounding organizations, is things don't connect today. And that's what we're here to talk about. And this connectivity challenge is a real issue. And I think going unaddressed, you actually risk in this type of market of falling behind pretty quickly. And when I talk about falling behind, it's not just about your competitors that you can see, but the barrier for entry for markets today is so low that anyone can come in and disrupt your business or part of your business with a new disruptive business model very easily. And in my mind, what I'm asking you today is to think about integration differently. So when you came in the room today, I'm pretty sure many of you have either worked with integration platforms or have integration capabilities inside your organization. And you have this view of what integration is. And over the last 20 years, integration has been heavy and difficult. But I want you to leave that perception of integration at the door today, because things have changed. The goals have changed. The way you need to think about connectivity and integration has changed. And you need to leave that perception behind as the first step really to becoming a connected company. So to talk a bit about the connectivity challenge, traditional integration has all been about big heavyweight systems connected with big heavyweight middleware. And frankly, integration in that period was awful. I don't even know why I started this company back then, because it was pretty painful. But I started it because I felt integration should be easier. And back then, and I'm only talking sort of 5 years ago, 7 years ago, integration was really this necessary evil. It's something that you did just because you had to get things connected. And typically, it was very focused on back-end systems. Now, what's happened since is the business has been lured in with SaaS applications, purpose-built applications for almost every business function inside your organization, is drawing the business to the cloud. These applications are easier to install, to manage, because they're managed by other providers, and they're very easy to get up and running with. And it's this shift that's driven a lot of the first steps towards the cloud is just SaaS adoption. But it doesn't stop there. Because the consumer expectation has changed, it means that our customer expectation has changed, and so have our employees. So this need to connect is now more prevalent than ever. And this is the new landscape of the enterprise. This is the new enterprise landscape. It's a current state. This is what we're all living. And it just represents massive fragmentation in the types of things we need to connect to, thousands of new endpoints that somehow need to all connect back into some sort of cohesive IT strategy. And that's the connectivity challenge. And the challenge here is, how do you get that all to connect? Before you even get to the future of connected healthcare or connected cars or connected education, we've got to figure out how we even connect our own enterprises. Well, one thing's for sure is we can't keep doing it the way a lot of people have been doing it, which is point-to-point integration. Now, many of you will be familiar with the point-to-point integration. You may be, actually, a quick show of hands. Who is doing point-to-point integration right now? Quick show of hands. Actually, not that many of you. So who's not doing point-to-point integration? So what the hell is everyone else doing here? All right, I see. So not too much participation there. So I think the folks who admitted they're doing point-to-point integration, you're on the right track, because admitting you have that problem is the first step. And for everyone else, I'm going to explain to you what point-to-point integration is, and then I'll ask you at the break whether you really are doing it or not. So point-to-point integration is actually the terrible practice of tightly coupling your applications. It's by doing one-off quick integrations between 2 or more systems just to get the job done and then move on. The problem with doing that is every time you do it, you create this tight coupling between applications. And then every subsequent change you make to any one of those applications has a downstream effect. And this is what actually disables organizations. And amazingly, this problem is starting to get wide visibility in the organization, all the way up to the CEO level. Because they're starting to realize the reason they can't move quickly is because their data and their functionality and their capability is all locked up with this tight coupling between applications. And this is where MuleSoft came from. We started life solving this problem. And I was talking to a customer fairly recently, and I won't name names. It was a US company, not a UK company, because you guys don't do point-to-point integration. And he was telling me that to do any single change to a system of record application, actually their ERP system, was costing them $1.4 million, and it took them about 5 months, which is incredible. The change they're talking about is actually adding a field. They realized that's how long it was taking them to make any one change. And the reason being was because everything was so tightly coupled that the change took about 10 minutes to do, but the downstream testing and making sure you didn't break any other area of the business took months. And that's the realization inside many enterprises, is that change doesn't happen, not because you can't make the change, but the impact of that change is so huge because you have this tight coupling. So this isn't an isolated problem. This is actually endemic to the whole industry. And if you look at the reports that come from all the various analyst vendors, there's about $500 billion spend on custom code point-to-point integration every day. Oh, sorry, every year. Every day would be pretty awful. But every year. And amazingly, that number goes up every year. But that spend isn't driving innovation, isn't working towards a connected future. 99% of that spend is actually just treading water. It's keeping the lights on and fixing things as they break and trying to figure out what on earth went wrong. And because we keep integrating, or have been integrating and thinking about integration as this necessary thing that we just have to do quickly, unfortunately, that spend continues to rise. And this is one of the endemic problems of how we think about integration today. So I asked you to think differently about integration, and now I'm going to give you a different frame of view on the way we think about connectivity and integration. So on the left-hand side here, you have your assets. These are your applications that you run your business on. It's your databases, the thousands that you have in your organizations, your big data stores, and now increasingly your SaaS applications. This is where your information and a lot of your IP resides. This is the data you've built up over years and decades that represents a large portion of the value of your organization. And on the right-hand side, we've got your audiences. These are your customers, your partners, and your employees. And the notion of connectivity today, the challenge is how do you connect those assets to those audiences? Now, if you think about a connected enterprise and the way we bring products to market today, and we will do in the future, as some of the things that Greg described, is the value you're going to provide is how well you can unlock that data and deliver it through different digital channels to audiences at the right time. So how do you create that mobile app that means that you can request a cab and get it within 5 minutes? There's a lot of complexity behind there. There's a lot of back-end system integration. How do you create the mobile app that gives you variable pricing on gas prices as you drive through an unknown town? Again, there's a lot of back-end system integration to make that happen. You've got to unlock that asset, that data, and connect it to those audiences at the right time. And this is really, when I say think differently about integration, this is what I mean. It's no longer just about connecting back-end systems. And traditional integration, SOA, really did focus on just the back-end systems. So this notion that you connected these big heavyweight applications and you moved information between those applications was enough 15, 10, even 5 years ago. It was okay to do that. You got efficiencies in just having the same data replicated in the right areas. But what I'm talking about is unlocking that data and delivering it to consumers. And it's often being driven by this digital transformation that companies are going through, where their customers are demanding these sort of mobile applications to do more to connect with their vendors. Or it's your employees who want to be more efficient when they're working in the field, or just have the right information at the fingertips at the right time. And in essence, what we have is a great big white space. The landscape changed, but our thinking about how to solve the problems hasn't changed. You have this big white space between traditional integration and what integration and connectivity needs to be. And this is the void that MuleSoft fills. And this white space is all about connecting those enterprise assets to those audiences. And this is also where the innovation happens. This is where you get your mobile B2B, person-to-person payments. It's where insurance companies can offer applications to quickly access a claim online without having to talk to anyone. It's where you can, again, use the Addison Lee, order a cab and get it within 5 minutes. You're simplifying the process of the way your consumers talk to you, access your data, and in essence, you're building a different type of brand value. The brand value is the value you give to that consumer. And the type of initiatives that we see in this sort of new white space that is connectivity is things like being able to rapidly orchestrate data for mobile applications, or creating new B2B channels and the communities around those B2B channels. And on the employee side, things like connecting SaaS applications to the applications that you already work with, protecting that investment in the new application that's being brought in, and helping employees be more efficient and reduce the amount of change control required. And also building those sort of micro applications that there's thousands of developers in many organizations building for timesheets keeping or tracking or other sort of efficiency applications. And the interesting thing about this white space, it moves at a different speed. And you'll hear after this session this morning, Massimo present his thoughts on the role of integration in the new enterprise era. And it's become very clear that there's two speeds to this. There's the traditional integration that we do, and then there's this new speed that we have to do things much quicker. We have to respond to the business much quicker. And this is that white space where that actually happens. So that's a lot to think about, and it's a lot to connect to. And that's why we have the Anypoint Platform. And many of you will be familiar with this platform. Actually, quick show of hands. Who's using the Anypoint Platform, which, by the way, the base of it is Mule. So if you're using Mule, you're using that platform. Quick show of hands. Great, quite a few of you. Excellent. So the Anypoint Platform is pretty remarkable, I think, for two reasons. The first reason is it's hybrid. And I mentioned that customer expectation has changed, and we're bringing more SaaS into the organization. That means by default that your IT organization is hybrid. It means you have stuff on-premise and stuff in the cloud. And we've built the Anypoint Platform in that era. So when you build integrations on this platform, they can run on-premise, they can run in your data center, they can run on your developer's laptop, and they can run in the cloud, or you can mix and match. So it's the only hybrid integration platform out there. And the other key thing about the Anypoint Platform that really sets it apart from anything else you've seen before is it's extremely capable. Our philosophy on integration is that you really need to reduce the amount of software required, software to manage and operate inside your data center, to a few things to do a lot of different exercises. So the Anypoint Platform brings together lots of different integration use cases on one platform. And we separate these use cases into three pillars: SOA, SaaS, and APIs. And if we have a quick look at SOA first. So when we talk about integration and SOA, what we're really talking about is that traditional integration, that stuff you do on-premise, that heavy lifting of unlocking data in mainframe systems and AS400 systems and SAP and Oracle E-Business Suite. We still do that all day long, but the purpose is not just to connect those systems together, but it's actually to start unlocking that data and making it more available to the organization so they can build applications on top of it. The type of integration scenarios there are legacy modernization, so putting services around legacy systems so you don't have to touch them very often. Also things like doing traditional integration, but mixing it with new applications. So connecting SAP to Salesforce is a very common scenario for us. And then SaaS is a completely different beast. So SaaS is very different for a number of reasons. One is the application doesn't live in your data center. So it lives in someone else's data center, which means you don't control the lifecycle. You don't control the versioning. You have a different type of session management and authentication mechanisms. You can get network blips that cause that application to be unavailable. There's all these other complexities with SaaS integration that you don't see with your traditional connectivity. So we spent a lot of time here productizing the way you talk to SaaS applications, and you'll see over the next 2 days, especially through the demo sessions, how that actually plays out. But our whole goal there is to reduce the complexity so that any developer can connect to SaaS apps without knowing a whole lot about those applications to begin with. The other thing with SaaS is they're very numerous. You know, Greg talked about there being 2,000 SaaS vendors out there today. That means pretty much every business function in your organization, there is probably a vendor serving a SaaS application for that function. That means increasingly, there's many more applications. SaaS actually fragments the application landscape quite considerably, which is complete opposite of where we were 5 years ago when people were investing in complete application stacks from Oracle or SAP. So the world and the role of integration, again, has massively changed. So dealing with that is complex, but the kind of things we do with our SaaS integration capabilities is things like data sync, just moving information between those applications because you have data on-premise and you have data in the cloud. Also, orchestration between both SaaS and on-premise applications. That's probably one of the biggest challenges is when something happens on one system, make sure not only that information propagates, but you actually trigger other events. So do real-time integration but in a hybrid environment isn't that easy, or wasn't that easy before the Anypoint platform. And then finally, for me, the icing on the cake is APIs. Now, APIs are critical to this connected future because APIs are the catalyst for connectivity. As I said before, it's not enough just to connect the applications. What you've also got to do is unlock that data so other people can connect and leverage that information as well. And APIs really enable that. And you can see in the types of use cases from our customers, they're already starting to create those digital channels to engage their consumers and partners and even employees better. So a lot of what we see is integration from mobile initiatives. And probably about 60% of our customers list mobile as one of the reasons why they're even embarking on an initiative with our platform. And if you think about mobile, it's exactly as I've described. You've got to get data out of legacy systems in the back end. Typically, you're also integrating SaaS application data, but you're, in essence, packaging that information up to provide a better experience to your mobile consumer, to delight your consumer and keep them on your as a customer of yours. Other types of scenarios are internal APIs. So unlocking information internally inside your organization. So, I've had a few conversations with people who said, we have an innovation problem, and because we're not driving innovation fast enough. And they always think it's the problem of their employees. But what I've found is companies have loads of great ideas inside the ranks of their organization. The problem is if you don't unlock the data so they can actually start to realize some of those ideas, they just die immediately. And so the role of internal API for me is actually to unlock your information internally so you can start driving better, newer ideas and more innovation, or more agility even. And then the final one is B2B. So traditional B2B is not going away. So EDI vans will probably exist longer than anything else. But APIs are looked as a way of broadening the B2B network, offering a different self-serve experience. And a lot of people, when they talk about APIs, who've been doing it for a while talk about APIs in terms of it's their automated B2B model, which is their biz dev. People can actually come and sign up, access certain resources of your organization without you having to be involved or lowering the barrier of entry for new partners to come on board. So that's the API Anypoint platform in a nutshell. And recently, we launched Anypoint Platform 3.5. And I just wanted to highlight some key characteristics. This was a really big release for us. There's lots of great capabilities across all the different functions that we provide. There's a few things I should highlight today that I think, again, set us apart. One is we introduced batch processing. So data integration. If you're familiar with application integration and data integration, application integration is usually real time. When something happens, when a transaction occurs, application integration triggers to integrate that information to other systems. Well, batch processing It usually happens end of day, and it's usually millions of records at a time. And usually you have a different technology stack for doing data integration. Well, we've now brought those capabilities onto the Anypoint platform. That means you can mix and match both application and data integration on one platform. That means one skill set for your developers. That means one runtime platform to manage in production. And this is really powerful because when developers learn Anypoint platform, they learn a set of concepts and patterns, and these are actually industry standard patterns, so it's not like we're inventing anything new. But they can then apply that knowledge to many different scenarios, whether it's SaaS integration, whether it's data integration, whether it's back-end integration. You can do all the same types of integration on one platform with the same tools. That makes your teams very much more proficient and productive, and it means that your teams become more fungible as well. So you start to normalize a very complex landscape into a very simple set of tooling and a platform to go with it. The other thing there is data sense. I'm a huge fan of data sense because as I think about the number of endpoints literally exploding that we need to connect to, I mean, you know, Greg talked about 2,000 SaaS applications, over 10,000 public APIs, and then, you know, devices in the billions. What that really means is we're only going to be integrating more stuff, not less stuff. And the easier you make it to discover those endpoints, get the meta information about the applications and the devices you're connecting to, and bring that into the tool suite, makes developers more productive. And DataSense does exactly that. It knows so much about the things it's connecting to that developers quite often don't even need to go to the application documentation to integrate two systems together. Because we present all the information within the Anypoint Studio platform, so developers can see very quickly and visually how to connect two systems together. And we'll show you some of this a bit later. And then the final one is Anypoint templates. And Anypoint templates, for me, take integration to the next level of consumerization. And what they essentially are packaged blueprints for doing common integration scenarios that we see across the board and our customers. But also we open this up for partners and to our customers as well, that they can create their own templates. And these templates are things like you know, common patterns between applications or common interaction patterns between technologies inside your enterprise. But the value of wrapping in a template is that you get an operationally optimized and manageable integration in minutes. It gives you a fantastic baseline from which to also modify existing behavior that we provide you, but allows developers to get up and running really quickly, and even less technical folks to quickly do certain types of integration tasks. And we're really committed to making everyone, or making integration available to everyone, because if you think about that connected future, there will be no such thing as integration developers and application developers. Those worlds are already merging. There's, you know, if you're building applications, you're connecting to other things. So the Anypoint platform really lowers the bar of entry for anyone to understand how to do integration. And we support lots of languages as well. So, you know, Java is obviously one of the key ones, but also .NET is very prevalent in our customer base, and we support .NET on this platform now as well. So, and as well as many scripting languages. So it's very capable, it's visual, and we support basically all the different types of skill sets you have in your organization, but the key element is helping everyone connect to different systems. So I want to switch gears a bit now and introduce a customer case study to help you understand how they've leveraged this platform and its capabilities. Now, it's probably worth taking a minute here to just highlight that there is big differences between the US healthcare system and the UK health system. Actually, when I went to the US, I was bewildered for many months on how to even navigate it. But one thing they do have in common is, I think on both sides of the pond, we're trying to figure out how to provide better patient healthcare. And the reason I picked this one, we do have customers in healthcare, we have NHS and others, but UCSF went one step beyond becoming a connected company. And I think it really highlights just one area that's often considered non-innovative, how innovation is actually starting to happen already. And you know, for UCSF, they've created this amazing application called CareWeb. And what they're really doing is creating a single view of the patient. And they're actually digitizing that conversation so that they can transport it between people and invite people into a conversation more easily. Now, the best way to describe this app is to take a look how they used to do it. And that will give you some idea of how far they've come in a very short time. So if you think about patient care generally, it doesn't matter if you're in the US or the UK, it's pretty disconnected. Hospitals actually store and providers store your information about patient data in a dizzying array of applications. It's all over the place. And the way doctors and physicians actually manage communication with each other when you're actually in the hospital or in the ER is through pager systems. Yeah, remember the old beeper systems? These are still prevalent in healthcare because, for one, we've always done it that way. You know, pagers were reliable back in the days when we didn't have smartphones, and that's just how they always managed the communication between those two parties. That's a very important communication happening between your doctor and the physician. And the problem with pager systems is it's very one-way. Literally, you send a message, it lives on someone else's device, and you never see it again. But there's important information being transferred. So the one thing they wanted to do is capture this conversation around the patient and also bring in other areas of the hospital. So bring in labs such as radiology, so when the results are ready, you're not waiting for somebody to pick up a manila file inside the hospital, but they can just post those results somewhere that people now know that that result is ready, can communicate it back to the patient. So what they did is they created this application, and I love this, called CareWeb. And CareWeb is, I believe, and I think even the industry believes, they've got a lot of press in the US around this application because it really is changing things. They're transforming the patient healthcare. And if we look at what they're connecting to on the left-hand side, we've got the Epic medical record system. That's the electronic medical record system in the US. We have something similar here on different platforms. They're using Salesforce chatter as the metaphor, as the communication around the patient. So the chatter, the central object is actually the patient, and then people can collaborate on that conversation. And they also have this bizarro pager system that was invented in, I think, probably late 70s, judging by the API that they have. And they wanted these things to connect. And on the right-hand side, they've got the audiences that are going to leverage this information. So at the bottom, they had the CareWeb application that was used by the doctors and the physicians. They've introduced radiology and a way for them to actually publish results through their systems to the CareWeb application. And interestingly, they've also enabled social channels so that they can actually provide communication to the patient while they're in the waiting room about what's going on. So rather than, when you're sitting there wondering what on earth are they doing, they're actually telling you, yeah, your radiology results are ready, you'll see a doctor in a few minutes. So they're engaging that patient, creating a much better experience. And in essence, they used the Anypoint Platform to connect all these things, and they built the application on top of that platform. And I think the takeaway for this is not, hey, they connected a bunch of stuff, but honestly, this 3 years ago was an impossible task for UCSF. They couldn't have built this application. They could have built it with custom code and a lot of heavy lifting from different application vendors. But they couldn't get a lot of budget around this type of application, and they couldn't justify its full value right up front. And this is one of the biggest issues with any type of innovation. It's very hard sometimes to justify any kind of budget for anything that's innovative because people don't always see the value because you're forward-looking. So what they did with the Anypoint Platform is it gave them a low barrier to entry to build a very innovative app. And they connected on-premise systems, legacy on-premise medical record systems. They connected SaaS. They connected devices such as the pager network all on one platform. This meant that the development cycles were much lower. It was much easier to implement. The cost of the overall solution was much lower because they're buying one single platform from one vendor. And they realized the whole solution in less than 9 months. And it's a great success story in my mind of becoming a connected company, of mixing the old, new, and frankly bizarre in the pager network system to all connect to provide a completely transformative customer experience, in this case for the patient.